All right. Welcome back to Ground Level Garage in Brooklyn, New York. It's been a while since we've given you any updates on the N600 build, but today we've got an episode full of nothing but upgrades, all right? You're probably recognizing that we corrected our suspension issues that we were having in the last episode. We'll go into detail on how we did that a little later. We got some new fender flares here, our newly refurbished wheels, some imported camber plates, custom tie rod ends, and a whole bunch of other goodies that's gonna get this car looking primo. So without further ado, we should get right into it. We owe you guys a good episode. Welcome back to the Curb Cut. All right, so first thing we're gonna do tonight is get these fender flares on the car. All right, and I know a lot of you at home right now wincing, going like, oh my God, is he really gonna drill into this car? Look, this car isn't perfect. If anything, it's the perfect candidate for fender flares. Okay, it's something I did on my Z, a lot more nerve-wracking to do on that car. Whereas here, honestly, with the right attention to detail and the right tools, it's a lot harder to fuck this up than it is to do it the right way. So follow along and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. All right? Let's ruin this car. Okay, so the most complicated part about putting these flares on is really pretty intuitive once you get into things. You're gonna wanna position these things just right. And you wanna make sure the flares sit in the optimal location where they'll actually function as an over fender when you put your wider wheel setup on. To map this all out, go ahead and get yourself some painter's tape and section off the areas of your fenders where you're gonna be mocking up the flares. Then you simply use the mounting holes in the flares to mark out exactly where along the wheel well you want the flares to sit. Once you have these measured out, make sure to mimic the locations by measuring away from mirrored body lines and trim pieces as they appear on both sides of the car. Symmetry is key here. Once you know where everything's gonna mount, it's time to start drilling. An important note for how you're gonna go about this is you're gonna wanna step up the size of your drill bits as you go. Don't just start with the largest size needed to accommodate your hardware, because if you try that, you're gonna walk the bit all over the fender and majorly fuck up the car. Start with a modest pilot hole in the middle of your mark, drill, then stage up every other drill bit size until you arrive at the final gauge necessary to fit your mounting hardware. Albeit tedious, it counts to take your time with this. Also, for those of you wondering, we managed to get a pretty impressive color match on our flares by using an off-the-shelf Rust-Oleum rattle can. The color is almond gloss if you're curious. We're gonna get the whole car repainted at some point, but for now, this really is the perfect budget solution for the cosmetic goals of the moment. Before we get the car on the road, we're going to go back in and radius the sheet metal beneath the flares to accommodate for any interference we may encounter with our new wheel setup. Depending on how low the car is and what our suspension travel looks like it's going to be, we're just going to have to make those assessments later. That being said, it's time we take a look at our coilovers, a custom piece of our build here that was re-engineered twice over now to meet our goals. All right, so now that our coilovers are out of the car, you're probably noticing that they look a lot different than our previous episode. And that's because we went ahead and got some Swift springs to rectify the issues we were having about needing to get low. See, originally when these were redesigned by Mr. Morris, he employed the use of a 9-inch QA1 spring, the kind of spring you find in Jegs or Summit Racing. You know, pretty easy aftermarket option, but not the one we needed. On this assembly, when the 9-inch spring is in place and the collar is at max low, it's really not bringing the car that much lower to the ground than stock. So the adjustability we were looking for in the assembly just wasn't had in that kind of setup. So what I ended up doing was I sourced some 6-inch Swift springs, okay, installed them in our sleeves, and also employ the use of a helper. Now see, if I just went ahead and installed a 6-inch spring in here, when the damper goes at full droop, this 6-inch spring would just sort of float around in the assembly, all right? You need a helper on the bottom to keep the spring seated. So it's a mild spring up top. It's basically like 80 pounds of pressure. So when the whole car sits down on this spring, the helper gets compressed, okay? And the car rides around on this. When full droop comes out and you hit a bump or you angle up on a curb cut or something, the helper helps keep the spring seated. If this thing rattles around inside, you fuck everything up. It's not smart to ride without a helper spring. And it's cool, when the whole weight of the car comes down on this assembly, the helper spring crushes to like 1.75 inches, pretty much, and you get a lot of adjustability out of the assembly. Something we wanted in the first place, and well, we finally have now, thanks to Swift. All right, so now that all of our vertical adjustability is accounted for in our new assembly, we're gonna start dealing with the lateral movement of our suspension, okay? And get rid of these rigid top hats. All right, so again, when Mr. Morris redesigned our stock strut assemblies here with the new coilover sleeve and everything, he ended up reusing the stock Honda top hat, okay? It's a rigid top hat, there's no adjustability on the top half, which is fine, but when you lower the car as much as we did, you're gonna end up encountering issues of getting like massive negative camber, okay? The car comes down and the wheels start to bow. Especially on a front wheel drive car, you do not want that, all right? So we need a means to sort of correct this new geometry we're arriving at and lowering the car so much. And that's why we went ahead and bought some Silk Road Honda N360 adjustable pillow ball camber plates, okay? These things are fucking awesome. They're special order from Japan. It's kind of hard to find them, but they're out there, and we ordered them. And basically, these are designed for the Honda N360, the sister car to the N600 that we have here in the States. Same bolt pattern and everything, pretty much a direct replacement. And what this allows us to do is once they're installed on the top end of our assembly here, and they're mounted up in the strut towers in the car, you can correct the negative camber by sliding in the upper mount point, positive or negative degree, okay? This is gonna help us majorly in squaring up the way that our car rides down the road. You know, effectively doing it the right way. All right, so another cool piece of custom adjustability we have here now are our THK pillow ball tie rod ends. The stock tie rod ends on our Honda are completely shot, and they employ the use of a standard form greasable ball joint, you know, with a fluted bolt and the castle nut and whatnot. These THK units, they employ a pillow ball, you know, with a protective boot over the end, but you don't have to constantly grease these or worry about it. And the bolt itself that comes off the tie rod end is flanged. You throw that through the end of the steering arm, throw a flange on top, lock it down, and this encumbers all the load of driving. A much cooler and durable design than what we had stock. There's two reasons we got these. Finding stock tie rod ends for a Honda N600, they're kind of hard to come by. eBay's full of ruined stock units that you probably already have laying around. What I was able to do is I went on the blogs for club racers in Japan, guys who race N360s, and they all swore by these. So we're gonna give them a shot and see how they work out. Okay, well, keeping in tradition with how things have been going with this build here, we've run into a minor snag when we tried to install these new tie rod ends. Basically, be it from powder coating on the strut assemblies or things being slightly out of spec, the THK ends don't want to pass through our steering arms right now. Hopefully this is something a little filing can correct, but I'm gonna have to sort this out later. It's getting late here, we really want to button up these new wheels. All right, so saving all good things for last, it's about time we get some tires on our wheels. All right, we're gonna reuse the tires we already have. There's plenty of tread left on them, no dry rot or anything, because we don't really know what we want to do with sizing out these wheels for tires. There's nothing online to cross-reference, so we're just gonna have to take these, put them on these wheels, and see where they land. So without further ado, let's style up this Honda. Lining up tires without proper machinery is a total pain in the ass. But as luck would have it, our buddy Diego poked his head in on his way home from the soccer match. Naturally, we roped him into helping us caveman these tires onto our wheels. And thank God he was here when we busted out the Cheetah. Otherwise, these wheels would have ended up pinballing around the entire garage. All right, gang, I'm shot. It's 2 a.m., we've been here all night, but we got a ton of work done. All right, a few small issues to remedy, gotta order some parts, but aside from that, honestly, the way this thing's sitting right now, the new flares, new wheels, this much closer to the ground, I can proudly say that things are looking up for Project N600. But that's where we're gonna have to leave it for tonight. We'll see you next time.